I'm going to call the Monday, April 15th, Tax Day Planning Commission meeting to order. It's 7 p.m. right on the dot. So roll call, let's do roll call.
Commissioner Farzan is
Yeah.
present.
Yeah. Commissioner Mason
Mason's present.
Commissioner Sturm, present.
and Commissioner Heising, acting chair, is present.
You want to mention the two that are excused?
Yeah, the
today?
two that are, thank you for keeping me in line. Two that are excused are Commissioner Labange and Commissioner Radnich. I'll take a motion to adopt the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Do we have any public comment for items not on tonight's agenda? Seeing none in the audience, do we have any online?
I will ask our AV coordinator to check to see if there's any hands raised. I'm very good. Thank you. No online comments.
Thank you. So we'll move to item 5. It's a capital projects update from our Public Works Director, Mike Moran. Welcome, Mike.
Thank you and good evening, Planning Commission, Acting Chair Heising. So this is my sort of once a year opportunity to just kind of go over what engineering's done, capital projects related, and what we're doing and what we plan to do. And ultimately for what we plan to do for the, I'll call it construction year 2025, we will ask the commission to find conformity with the general plan. So I'm going to show you basically the slides that were in my staff report. Just kind of as a review of this last year, we did have a paving project. The two primary streets were Glenside and Olympic. This is a photo of Glenside here, shows a pathway and the repaved section of the road. It came out really nice, I believe. And we can move on. There we go. And here's Olympic Boulevard. Also has some pathway sidewalk on the other side that was widened, bikeway, the green paint and all. So coming a little more bike ped friendly. And that was our main paving project this last year. Taking away from our paving dollars, so to speak, would be the next project. We did work on 3 pathway sections as well. So keeping with the theme of safe routes to school and safety improvements near schools, this is on Quant Road, which is kind of the extension of Spring Hill across Pleasant Hill Road. This would lead to Spring Hill School. This is a large section we had done. We didn't do all of Quant Road, but we did probably 2/3 of it. And the other third does have a sidewalk walkway, which we would like to widen and improve one day. But this was the section in very poor condition that needed some reconstruction soon. So we did this one. We also did this next section is a section on Pleasant Hill Road between Reilly's Valley and Spring Hill School again. So you can see the crosswalk on the slide on the right, leading right to Spring Hill School. And we will extend that actually next year. And then finally, next slide, we had a section on Reilly's Valley Road. 2 years ago, we did some Reilly's Valley Road path paving. This was an older section of pathway. This section here had failed. The retaining wall had failed and it was literally crumbling. So this was another section we did. So we basically combined 3 pathway sections, Quant, Spring Hill, and Reilly's Valley Road. And that was several $100,000, near $750,000 kind of project. So in doing those types of projects, we're not fixing the streets, but we're taking care of complete streets, if you will, the bike ped portion of that. But also in doing that, our PCI or our pavement condition index is slipping slightly. We're not putting quite as much into pavement maintenance as we'd like. We're doing close to it, but not quite. And part of that is just the cost of construction. So on this next slide, happy to report we finally completed a project that had been lingering. It's right here at this building upstairs. It's the children's deck. This was one of those projects that was very difficult. The contractor was really in over his head. He underbid it, really didn't have the experience and the wherewithal to do a public project and follow the rules. And it was just really tough. At the very end, we finally took it away from him and completed it. But that took some process and some joint checks to subcontractors that weren't getting paid and a long time. This should have been done in 6 months, and it lingered for almost 2 years and got a little bit legal. So it's one of those projects that wasn't fun going through it. I'm really glad it's done now, and it is actually being used quite frequently with a lot of kids up there from time to time from children's story time and other things. So if you ever get a chance to see the children's deck, that was a completely underutilized, almost non-utilized space that is now used and regularly programmed up there. So there is some good benefit to that. Another one of our lingering projects that I believe was in my update last year was the signal at Mount Diablo Court on Mount Diablo Boulevard. After many months with PG&E, we did get activation. I think it was in November that we finally had that traffic signal activated. You can see the landscape strip with nothing but weeds in there. That came right out of the wonderful topsoil that we bought. But we do plan to landscape that and add a tree or two. It's not a big area, so it won't have a lot of trees. But we did put irrigation in and did put the topsoil in to get it ready for landscaping. We didn't have the funding to do it at the time. But our public works crew will add some landscaping to that. So it will have an improved look, hopefully by this summer. So I'm glad that that's going. We have continued for about 1.5 years now with the safety improvements near schools, formal things. We've had several flashing beacon crossings, a lot of changed striping. The radar signs here, as you see, this is over by Acalanes High School and coming the other way. One of these signs has already been hit and taken out on Pleasant Hill Road, and there's $25,000 that we're having to replace like almost instantly. That was well into a center median. Somebody had to drive well into a center median to hit it. So the problem with putting this type of stuff in is we have to maintain it forever. It's not just the capital cost. However, we've done a lot of things. We have a couple things left. We've done speed humps near schools. We've done striping. We've done the radar signs. We've done flashing beacon crossings. We have 2 raised crosswalks we're going to put in. One near Spring Hill School at the free right turn coming off of Spring Hill Road onto southbound Pleasant Hill Road, and one on Stanley at the high school here. If you've ever been at the high school at like bell time, you'll see kids jaywalking from Shell Station and the little mini mart there to the high school itself. We're going to stop fighting it and actually just give them a regulated crosswalk there where they sort of naturally cross. That was just one of the things that came from our safety improvements near school walks and reviews, and they're crossing there anyway. And so we're going to formalize that. So that's the second one. And those will be lumped in with projects that we're building this summer. This last one here was unexpected. Our storms from, I guess it'd be like December 31st of 22 and January of 23, which we had declared storms in California. We had a slide on Hamlin. This is the Batwing property at 3333 Hamlin. And that material that's on that hillside now, it doesn't look so steep there. If you ever walk on it, it's a lot steeper, was going down the hill and into the adjacent property and their pool and their property. We had a pretty good slide here. We reworked this material, added a retaining wall. That was not a planned project. This is something we just did for Parks, Trails, and Rec. And I have sought about $126,000 of funding from FEMA reimbursable. It's in the final stages of approval. We have 4 different projects with FEMA for some reimbursement, for some storm fighting, for another failed retaining wall, for a slide at Community Park, and one at Buckeye Fields, and then this project here. So kind of got 4 outstanding FEMA bills, if you will, where I'm hoping to get reimbursement, and literally got an update on that this morning, that 2 out of 4 of those were completed and 2 out of 4 of those were pending. And, you know, that's 15 months later after starting that process. So, so we fit things like this in as we go. And that brings me, we'll go to 13, to my table of, and I'll look at the lower part of this first. Sort of the carryover or the multi-year projects, if you will. The pathway paving, I showed you a section on Pleasant Hill Road that we did by Spring Hill Road. We also have some grant funding to help supplement a section on Pleasant Hill Road on the south side of Spring Hill Road, so along the school frontage. So it would be kind of an extension of the path we just did between Reilly's Valley to Spring Hill, and it would connect to the East Bay Regional Trails parking lot, which, although it's not formalized and it's not sanctioned, so to speak, it's obviously used as a drop-off and pickup for Spring Hill School. And informally, East Bay Parks is generally okay with it. So it will be well used. The one drawback from that, and that is coming, is we will be removing the informal parking along Pleasant Hill Road in front of that school. And if you ever drive there, you'll see 7 to 10 vehicles parked there at any time. So those parking places will be displaced, but there really is a safety issue with how people are parking there and getting in and out and crossing lanes where they shouldn't. And we've tried education to our teachers mostly, and it's not been working. So those parking places will go away. I probably mentioned a smart signals project last year. It's still kind of in the planning, pre-planning stages, but we have both the La Miranda, so Lafayette, Moraga, Orinda joint project, and a portion of a regional-wide, county-wide project. Both of those projects are being spearheaded by the Contra Costa Transportation Authority. There's federal funding associated with both of them, both One Bay Area Grant 3 and federal earmarks. And then our matching funds will be some development funds from the Lafayette Fee and Finance Authority. LFFA development fees will be our matching portion for that. I expect that to be like a 3-year project with us not being even a year in. So at least a couple more years before we're seeing construction, just the way our planning meetings are going. And because it is a region-wide project, there's a lot of input, and every jurisdiction gets to review and provide input. And then we come back a month later, and some people have commented, some people haven't, and they extended a month. It's not progressing quickly. So you'll probably see it more than one or more times in the future. I do have a project out for a bridge maintenance design project, just setting up. That's mostly like bridge scour and some redecking at a couple bridges on Moraga Boulevard, one on Reilly Station Road between Pleasant Hill. It's kind of the quarter circle between Pleasant Hill Road and Olympic, and one on Old Tunnel Road where we have some scouring. So those 4 bridges will need some maintenance in the future, but they're just putting together kind of the environmental and the design packet for that. That's ongoing. That is being consulted out. Pathway design and construction, school, Topper, St. Mary's. This was mentioned last year. We've had some pretty good progress on this. We've had 3 community meetings, or I'll say 2.5, maybe a neighborhood meeting and 2 formal community meetings. And the design team has a good presentation on a preliminary design that we're hoping to get approval on from our council. I'm going to say by June of this year. It's also a multi-year project, but we do hope to start construction on that in 25 and complete that design this calendar year, or maybe even into early 25. So we'll see how that goes. There was some pushback, I will say, from one of the streets, Topper Lane. They felt that we had a little overkill, that the pathway was wider than the neighborhood would like to have, and it would take away from the character of that lane. We kind of agreed with them based on our first pathway. We're working on a compromise. I think they still want less than the city wants to put in, but that compromise really is rather than having a 10-foot wide multi-purpose path, having a 6-foot wide path for that section. It doesn't take as many users, And it would still connect to School Street and the regional trail and basically all the way to First and downtown, really to this facility. If you wanted to walk fairly on a protected pathway from St. Mary's Road at Topper. So we're working on that. I hope in a couple months we will have more progress. I did see an error in my staff report. My apologies. I said that I didn't include the BART PED bike project in the table above, but I did go back and add it without editing that sentence because since I have taken this to our Capital Projects Assessment Committee and now we actually did get some movement from BART. They did provide us some comments back. We finally got something. So I kind of like have new hope if that this project will progress. I know our city manager has wanted it to proceed for a few years now. We literally had 3 years of BART almost doing nothing. And I felt like we were waiting for very little for the next step. So I will say that this is in the city's hands now. The next step is for us to package a specification and design package and put their bike facility design into our site work design and merge the two and put a specification package that follows the BART specs. So we are working on that. I am a little concerned that since this has been a project that's gone on for more than 5 years, that we will not have enough funding when we actually get to bidding this out, but we'll find out when we get there. So it's still on our list. So that's the carryover multi-year projects in a nutshell. And the top portion is really what I'm asking for focus on. The 2025 pavement repair, that's going to be primarily St. Mary's Road next year. We have fewer streets, but one big one from the Glenside Y to Roar, all of St. Mary's Road will be repaved. You will notice a lot of construction if you have to drive in that portion of the city this year because East Bay Mud is tearing up that this year to put in a new pipeline. And you may recall that we deferred it last year. We were supposed to actually do that last year. We had to defer it for 2 years because of that pipeline replacement project. So all systems are go. We have heard from East Bay Mud. They're actually starting some potholing and some of the preliminary steps for their work, and they'll be out there all summer and into the school year for sure. It's going to be a long project. But we will hopefully have a new water main that we can pave over when that's done, and that'll happen next year. Hampton at Mount Diablo, I put rectangular rapid flashing beacon crossing. This is something that came to TransCirc, I'm going to say 4 years ago. There is a mid-block crossing at Hampton across Mount Diablo Boulevard. It would take you from some apartments over to, for example, the 7-Eleven or the Starbucks over there. People do cross there quite frequently. It is 5 lanes of traffic plus shoulders. It's very wide, and it's concerning for some people crossing there, and the speeds can get kind of high. This is the east end of town. So we have proposed to put a flashing beacon crossing, but installing it more like a traffic signal so that it could be upgraded to what we call a hawk signal, which would be an actual red flashing light that would stop traffic. We're going to put in the mast arms as if it was that signal, but we're going to start with the flashing beacon, just the yellow crossing, because we can power that with solar, and I don't have to wait 2 years on PG&E like we did for our traffic signal at Mount Diablo Court. We deferred putting that out to bid because we had to wait for their engineering to put together a package just to give us a connection. And then we had several months we had to wait just for them to make the connection for us. So knowing this, we want to put the fate of the project in our hands and have something sooner than that. And then it could be transitioned if we were to ever get a power source in the future to an actual red flashing crossing that would only be activated when somebody's crossing the street and would otherwise be effectively a green light. So we've put in for a TDA grant, hoping to get a portion of that project money. We won't know that until about October, but we're hopeful. And then we've got a Campana building demolition. This would be a new project. You may know, I'm sure you know, we bought the Campana building on Moraga Boulevard, Moraga Road, excuse me. The use of that site, we don't know yet. The council hasn't made a decision on. The most likely short-term use is public parking, and removing the building will lead to that, and it would require safing it up, disconnecting utilities, taking the building out, and basically just having a vacant site and probably some repaving. I don't know beyond that. That's going to have to be a council decision. I'm sure whatever happens, if we do ever a building project on it, it will certainly come to Planning Commission for whatever it is we're doing. I do have a St. Mary's Road bank stabilization. If you drive St. Mary's Road between Roar and Moraga, you'll see some cones and some plastic on the side of the road where it's pretty steep. That's the emergency project last year that I believe I showed you, where we added some riprap to sort of stabilize that. But the permanent restoration will also include a retaining wall, a deep retaining wall along that. It's only about 55 feet wide. I'm in the throes of Federal Highway Administration paperwork for that. That goes through Caltrans. I don't know how fast they'll move. I have done the preliminary environmental work, which takes a while, and I don't quite have the green light to even do the design, let alone the construction. So they take a long time. I'm not super concerned about it failing in the near term, but it is something we want to button up. And of course, I'd like to use federal dollars to do it if we can. So that's out there. I would hope to build it next calendar year. We'll see how Caltrans goes. And those are mainly the main projects we have. So with some of these carryovers we'll be working on, but the main projects we're asking for conformance with the general plan are the pavement repair, the flashing beacon crossing at Hampton, the stabilization along the St. Mary's Road Creek Bank, and the Campana building demolition. And I believe that's it. Parks, Trails, and Rec did do their playground this last year. They have a handful of projects they'd like to do, but I'm pretty certain they're out of funding for right now. So I don't have a PTR project listed on this year, but we did last year, and it was the playground, and they were able to handle that with using consultants because we didn't have the staff to really support them. And I will say on that note, that did cost more than if we had somebody on staff. We had tried to hire somebody a couple times. We've advertised twice for a senior engineer and really have not been successful in attracting a good recruit. I don't know if that tide is turning a little bit. I've sat on 2 interview panels recently for senior engineers for other jurisdictions, and they seem to be getting pretty decent candidates. But I've also learned that those candidates all had really good offers really quick. So it's a tough market out there. We'll see how it goes in the future. So that's my report. I'm happy to take any questions. I am looking for a recommendation to concur with the general plan for the proposed 2025 capital projects, which is effectively the top half of this table.
Great. Thanks, Mike, for that. Before I ask the commission if there's any questions, do we have any members of the public that have questions or comments on the report? Okay, seeing none in person, do we have anyone online?
Checking. No, we do not.
Okay, thank you. So Commissioner, questions or comments? Commissioner Mason.
This is sort of off topic and I'm working from memory. I thought I saw, did I remember some historical marker by the Campana building? I was never sure what it was.
I'm not aware. I don't know. Greg, do you know? Unsure.
No problem. Thank you.
Okay. Oh, you do. Okay. Commissioner Sturm?
Just a question, and I can agree with compliance of the general plan, but just my questions are sort of out of curiosity. the crossing, no, wait. Well, the crossing on Mount Diablo, or no, at Hampton and Mount Diablo, is there an issue with having different types of crossing in the same road? Because aren't there other crossings near to that one that aren't signaled, or?
So there is one other mid-block crossing that's unprotected. Well, I call it mid-block. It's actually not technically mid-block. It's at a block, right? But it's an unprotected crossing across the main street. That location is about halfway. It's about 1,100 feet from Carroll Lane and about the same distance from Brown Avenue. And there's no signals in between. If you come up closer to the west at Golden Gate, like at the gazebo,
Mhm.
we do have flashing beacon crossings at those locations already on both sides. So both the east and the west crossings.
Mhm.
So this would be similar to that, only this would be what we were able to do there as part of a larger project is build center medians, larger center medians, with a protected island in the middle, and just have you cross even half at a time. This would also, I should add, this would also include a similar center median, but not a long median. It would literally just be a refuge for a pedestrian. So a smaller curbed cutout with both a nose and a tail, if you will. And a mast arm to get across this, because again, we're forward thinking that this could be converted to a true, to a semi-true signal, more so than just a flashing yellow beacon. So
The non-signaled crosswalks nearby would be left as such until a
they
need.
would, with hopes that they would be used less. I mean, we may look at the one that is actually one more street over, closer to Brown, so closer to the west, and actually deleting it if it's more reasonable to cross at Hampton at a more protected crossing.
Okay, yeah,
But
that
we
would.
haven't looked at that. The intent for now would be just to leave it.
Okay. And then the pathway on Topper Lane, is that something, once the design gets sort of more finalized, is that going to be coming to the planning commission for any reason, or?
It wouldn't, yeah. It would, so the next two steps for that project are to go to the Transportation and Circulation Commission, and then to council, because they have to ultimately authorize direction and funding. But it, for the most part, has been an approved project already when we sought the earmarked funding for it.
Okay, and where it ends at St. Mary's and Topper, how does it sort of taper out or
So at that location where it would end on top, or if we end up doing the path on the east side, so across the street from the homes and along the back fences, it actually is going to wrap on St. Mary's Road to Birdhaven, the next street down. So there'll be a sidewalk or pathway that'll go across kind of the sides of those homes there. So it's going to wrap one more block. We also are doing some planning and design for going the other way towards the school. And it's not funded as part of the construction, but it'd be nice if we could widen out a sidewalk there and more formalize a drop-off pickup. So there's design going on with this same project, but it's a separate phase. It's not funded by the earmark or the One Bay Area grant
Okay,
that we have for that.
okay, thank you. Oh, last question was I saw an email go out recently about the Lee Creekside Park and the gazebo. Are we at the beginning of like a 2-year process with that project?
I think they're at least 2 years in, and I'd say yes, probably. I don't know. This has been talks for quite a while, going back to when, a group wanted to change sort of the character of the existing Lee Creekside Park, right? So this has been, I think, offered as maybe an alternate location and leaving that passive park how it is and maybe doing a more active park at the gazebo. I'd refer you to Director Kadianagi mostly, but they're in talks, they're in hopes, they're consensus building within the community. And I believe they've made some decent progress, at least compared to sort of some of the divisiveness over the discussions originally to change sort of the passive park to a more active park.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Commissioner Farzan?
Hi, Mike. I remember asking this last year. So paving Mount Diablo west of Oakwood and
Yes.
on the east direction. So there are always massive holes because of the drainage issues. And I think you said you guys were looking, you thought it was a drainage problem and you were trying to pinpoint that. Did that happen?
So it is still happening. We have made good progress there. We're not so sure that it is caused by drainage. It may just be settlement, just given the natural ravine, and that's what it's looking more like now. We did open up and mostly clean out that pipe and the downstream. So what was happening was that pipe was backed up. So it is no longer, it's flowed all winter long, and I've personally checked it several times myself. And I don't know for sure if it's structurally sound or not, but it is a concrete pipe, and every place we could see it, it was. The problem is they could not get a camera where I think they need to get it to, because there was still mud and debris, and we couldn't flush it. So I'm hoping more of that has flushed out, and the intent is to relook. But actually, all systems are pointing towards it's maybe just settlement. We do have some Mount Diablo sections, and we will have to, no matter what, repair that roadway kind of on an ongoing maintenance basis, and maybe more permanent. I think it's 2026. If you look at that table of streets, so we've got some surface seal and we've got some actual pavement on Mount Diablo Boulevard over the next 2 and 3 years. And so whichever one this could be lumped with, we will. So I'm not as concerned about a big sinkhole, is because I have a little more knowledge this year than we had last year. And now that it's been through a winter and it's not moving, it could just literally just be settlement.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Great. I just had a quick follow-up question on the yellow flashing beacon that once we have PG&E power, and if you move forward with putting a hawk signal in there, is that yellow flashing beacon, can all that equipment be used somewhere else and it's not throwaway? You
It can, yeah. In
Okay.
fact, at almost any of the locations we've added recently, we'll need, we just had one hit already,
Okay.
right? So yes, that's the idea. It could either be put at another location or it could be parted out to be reused at locations we're already have in
Great.
place.
Great, thank you. Okay, so seeing no more questions, we've received the report. Do we need to vote on this to find any conformance?
You do,
You need a, okay.
please.
So, would anyone like to make a motion that we find, this year's capital improvement program in conformance with Lafayette's general plan?
So moved.
Okay,
Second.
we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, let's move on to the consent calendar. Any questions or polls from the consent calendar or corrections for the minutes? Not, can I have a motion?
Not for me, I wasn't there.
Okay,
So move.
okay.
I wasn't at the meeting.
I don't think we have, I think we can vote on the minutes even though we haven't been there. I mean, I'll make the second, because Greg and I were there. So we have a motion and a second to approve the consent calendar.
Aye.
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 Do they,
I abstain. I abstain when I'm not at meeting minutes. I think those are generally the rules.
okay, what
Yeah.
about item 6B?
Are you asking?
Yeah, I'm looking at,
Ah.
like, are we even, because if we have an abstention, do we have is that enough ayes to pass?
3 out of 4 is sufficient
Okay.
to pass the consent calendar, yeah.
Okay, all right,
And so we'll note Commissioner Farzan's abstention.
okay, great. All right, let's move on to item 7, continued public hearings. SAJ development, for, I'm not gonna read all this, a design review, grading permit, tree permit. at
I can't reach, it's not coming.
101, 107, and 109 Oak Hill Road. And
I will be giving the presentation this evening and we'll be moving to my left to allow the cord to connect. So hopefully, reset it there. Very good.
modern technology.
If your bingo card has technical difficulties, you can check that off.
Bingo.
Okay, that's fine. Do you want to extend it or?
I'm easy.
Yeah.
It didn't like the extended. It didn't want to move over, so I just made it PC screen out or duplicate. That'll work. Members of the commission, members of the audience, Greg Wolf presenting for Jean Iceberg this evening, who is the project planner handling this. She is currently attending a public meeting in another jurisdiction in the Bay Area. So I'm presenting on her behalf. She did craft the staff report, has been working with the applicant to address issues and the presentation, but I will be the voice of it this evening and will do my best to answer your questions should you have any. So this is the third meeting of hearing bodies on this. Seeing nods, you seem to recall the project. The project history, as outlined in your staff report, has included two prior essentially study sessions, including the Design Review Commission, the Planning Commission, and Transportation and Circulation Commission. And then in December of 2022, we had a meeting scheduled, but the applicant chose to put the project on hold for the time being. And so at this point in time, they have reactivated that, resumed the processing of it. So this is the third actual meeting on the project. So the project, you may recall, proposes the demolition of two commercial buildings, the retention of one, the northernmost commercial building, removal of 24 trees on and off the site. The off-site are in the public right-of-way. And there are three parcels, all contiguous, all under control of the project proponent. and they would be merged into a single parcel as a function of a lot line revision as a condition of approval of the project. The project before you is for 53 1 and 2 bedroom rental units, and this includes 6 below market rate units at the very low income and low income levels, 3 and 3. This satisfies both the city's inclusionary housing ordinance as well as provisions of state density bonus law, which the project is utilizing to increase the density of the project. There's a very a modest increase in the amount of impervious surfaces, but currently those impervious surfaces drain directly into the storm drain system when the runoff is not treated. And so this project would comply with our municipal regional permit from the Stormwater Board and the provisions of provision C.3. So C3 will be complied with through essentially bioinfiltration planters and bioretention planters. They will have 2 driveways, one to serve the commercial building on the north side directly off of Oak Hill, and that has 11 parking spaces in it. And then the predominance of the project, the residential building, will be parked beneath in a 2-level parking garage accessed off of the private terrace way. The project is in the special retail business district in the downtown and the core area of the downtown as outlined in the general plan and the downtown specific plan. It is an opportunity site as listed in the adopted housing elements adopted by the council in January of 23. It remains so, and it is considered a pipeline project because they have a pending application before the city. So we are using the numbers that they are proposing as the outcomes of the site for the purposes of meeting RENA. And then with respect to the downtown objective design standards, they were evaluated in the staff report and the project complies with those. And the analysis is in the staff report. I think we'll speak to it in this presentation as well. If you have any questions, I'm happy to take you through the calculations of the BMR calculations. And certainly the applicant can speak to it as well. I think suffice to say there will be 6 BMR units and they're identified in the project plans. And the income level to which they would be restricted, either very low income or low income. Our inclusionary ordinance requires that the proportions of those units be the same proportions as the market rate units in the project. So if they were 50-50, 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, the BMR units would similarly be 50-50. And then the ordinance similarly requires that the units be distributed throughout the project and not consolidated or segregated in some form. The project is requesting 4 waivers and concessions or incentives under state density bonus law, and those are with respect to height, parking, building design, essentially the upper floors, the size of those as a ratio to the lower floors. And then with respect to setbacks, a 10-foot wide landscape buffer is not provided along the entire property line as required in the ordinance. And our local density bonus ordinance requires that these ultimately be considered by the city council. There are waivers and concessions that can be handled at the zoning administrator level. They're the smallest and most straightforward. Certain can be handled by the planning commission, and certain, including height, need to go to the city council. So this will be going to the city council, and we're requesting are recommending that the Plan Commission this evening adopt the draft resolution and conditions of approval, recommending the approval to the City Council. Prior meetings identified some issues, questions, comments from the commissions, and those are listed in the staff report in a table, and how those were addressed by the recent revisions to the project. The predominance of those have been addressed by revisions to the project design. And I'm happy to go through them specifically. I'll move forward to those which were essentially not addressed. And the first being the staff report identifies the offsite path on the East Bay Mud Aqueduct property. So the city undertook a multimodal, multi-use pathway feasibility study. I'm going to guess approximately 10 years ago now. And this would use capitalize on the East Bay Mud Aqueduct, which runs throughout most of the downtown. And it would be for active transportation, walking, biking, and not have cars. And so you've seen projects at the west end of town, including the Woodbury Highlands, and Lennar, all build out and improve segments of that to build out the ultimate pathway. And this project is also adjacent to that aqueduct pathway. However, it is challenged by the vertical distance, the grade change from Oak Hill Road to adjacent grade to the west as it ascends. And so staff, the city engineer, the city's transportation planner has looked at that with the project proponents, and we've concluded that it would be infeasible to condition this project with construction of what would constitute essentially just ADA compliant handicap ramps going back and forth for the height up to the top of the slope to the west of Oak Hill Road. And so we had a discussion earlier today about, instead of that portion, which is topographically challenged, actually moving the obligation or the condition to make improvements to the pathway west of the top of slope. And I think the applicant can speak to the being agreeable to that, and we can flesh that out further as it goes to the council. But I think that is a long-term goal that the city has, is to build out that pathway through project development that is adjacent to the right of way. And so recognizing the economic infeasibility of the steep portion immediately adjacent, shifting that to the west, I think is certainly a reasonable move on the part of the city to make it more economically feasible to construct that portion. It would still be a portion which would be somewhat isolated. I mean, if from the BART station, there might be a segment that would need to be filled in, and from Oak Hill up to the top, but it would be part of the one piece in the ultimate puzzle to make all of those segments come together. With respect to architectural materials, I'll let the applicant speak to that. I think that they've stated in their response letter in the staff report that they feel that the materials are sufficiently diversified and used appropriately, and that adding it would be detrimental. Adding an additional material would be detrimental to the aesthetic of the project. And the letter also speaks to the infeasibility of adding additional trees in the commercial parking lot, if you will. which I think is, staff concurs with. So the key changes, the uppermost floor, we're calling it level 6. It's 5 stories over podium. Some unit reorganization at the topmost level there, and that manifests as in elevation facing Oak Hill Road, as you see on screen, the prior submittal on the left and the new submittal on the right. And this is the floor plan changes that manifest as the prior slide. And then there were comments related to trash receptacle, housing of trash and recycling and the feasibility of accessing those by the waste haulers. And egress from the stairway currently shown on screen. And so the earlier slide is on the left and the current slide is on the right, the current plan set. It also provides for adequate space surrounding the transformer, which is directly above the blue arrow. So the net result is a reduction of about 450 square feet of landscape area. With respect to public comments, we received 2 since the staff report was published last week. One is from Cal HDF and reminding the Planning Commission of state laws that the city is subject to. I think that the city's actions to date on this application are consistent with the letter. That's my assessment, that we are cognizant of those state laws and abiding by those. So no recommendation on that public comment other than to thank the sender, which we did, and receive and file. And then support from an adjacent neighbor, but concerns about deliveries and traffic on private Terrace Way, and the resolution of some grades and stair. And I believe that commenter is in the audience and may offer a public comment. But I think the 2 parties, the neighbor property owner and the project proponents, are in communications to address any further questions or modifications to the plans to accommodate existing conditions. So with that, our recommendation is to consider the revisions, hear from the applicant and the public, and at the conclusion of the public hearing, adopt the draft resolution recommending approval to the city council.
Okay, thank you. Any clarifying questions of staff on the staff report? Commissioner Sturm?
I have some more questions about the Edmund Aqueduct Trail issue that you were discussing. So when you were, in looking at the issue of the topography and the elevation differential, I was wondering about just completing the section of the path adjacent to the property and not worrying about access to and from the property, which is, I think, what you were getting at by saying we would work on a section west, like closer to what's already been completed. So my question is, if I can't remember how we calculate sort of the improvement. I mean, I think historically it's been the improvement along the length of the parcel. So if an applicant's not being asked or required to make those improvements along the length of the parcel, then how do we determine how much of the path is improved? And is there some kind of, I mean, it's a pretty long section from Oak Hill Road over to the next street over. but I don't know if there's like some lesser, like, could we just, I don't know, anyway. What's the process? And I guess the applicant can, when they give us their presentation, speak to whether they have an interest in completing access for their residents directly from the parcel or not. Yeah, that would be helpful.
So the subject parcels, this is the existing commercial building that will remain. And then the two additional parcels are to the south of that, where those will be demolished and redeveloped with the housing project. So the East Bay Mud Aqueduct fee simple property runs from Oak Hill over to essentially, this is the creek. Town Center built a pathway along the creek to go from Mount Diablo Boulevard up to the South BART Station entrance. So there is a creek crossing at this location that is used by pedestrians currently, although it's not really formalized for pedestrians, and East Bay Mud utility vehicles, et cetera. So they currently come to the end of the parking lot and then go off-road over the pathway. And you can see that the existing gravel access road, they come up, circulate around this access point down to the pipes themselves, and then return outward. And so I'll pull up, this only allows downward two-dimensional view, but I can pull up Google Earth and show more in a three-dimensional view. But suffice it to say that the topography is very challenging in this area to the east of that access point. It's just very steep. And so it would be essentially nothing but concrete ADA compliant ramps going from Oak Hill up to the top. And that is not consistent with the ultimate vision for the pathway being relatively of similar grade, bikeable, walkable, runnable, et cetera. Similarly to the west, kind of below this portion, it drops off a little more steeply. And so in discussion with the city engineer today, I think, ideally long-term, and this hasn't been fleshed out in greater detail, but you can see that the BART Station South entrance already has those switchbacks, ADA handicap ramp to get from the south parking lot up to the station entrance. And so if you are already at this higher elevation, it could be feasible to take off from that point and bridge across the creek and come over and meet at this point, so that you would have a more consistent pathway in the end, rather than having to navigate steep downs and steep ups throughout. So that is a future consideration. So our discussion with this project developer was to not make improvements to the east end of this section immediately adjacent, but instead to swap that to this flatter portion to the west, which already is pretty well graded out to some degree and used by vehicles and some pedestrians in a very informal way.
Okay, so just to clarify or make sure that I understand, so the switchback ramp was not access to and from the site to the trail. It's from the trail, like the high point of the trail, maybe where that box is, down to Oak Hill Road sidewalk?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then the town center project, their portion of trail improvement was a pathway to the trail, but not any length of trail?
Correct. Town Center did not make any significant improvements on the Aqueduct Trail. Their trail was essentially a north-south pathway along the creek.
Okay. And then at town center and sort of the connection point of their trail along the creek, there's a bridge that's not meant for pedestrian use, but is informally used for pedestrian use.
Yes, people walk across it all the time. It's suitable crossing for vehicles.
Okay. And then, so in looking at all of the elevation changes along that section, one potential solution is bringing a bridge from the sort of exit point of BART across to the trail, which could potentially just, whatever, be basically the bridge over the creek, but then we'd still need to come up with a solution down to Oak Hill Road,
Correct.
which isn't outlined in the Edmund Aqueduct Trail plan in any way? Or do they have I thought they just had a bridge across Oak Hill Road. Is that?
I think that is the current thinking of the city engineer and transportation manager. The feasibility study included, did not, my recollection, include a bridge over Oak Hill. It had more of an at-grade crossing, which is problematic because of the off-ramp
Mhm.
and curvature and speeds. And so grade separated would be superior from that criterion alone. But the solution was to actually use Caltrans property and reconstruct a plus or minus 40-foot tall retaining wall and use Caltrans property as the way to ascend from Oak Hill up to this high point with the box.
Can you trace that on the map?
Sure. So just to the north of the orange line, which represents the property line, it would be somewhere in this vicinity. So not compromising the exit itself, but adjacent to it. So moving the current retaining wall, which if you've exited there is very tall, rebuilding that by cutting into the hill more, so allowing pedestrian access essentially up adjacent to the off-ramp to climb the hill.
And I thought there was talk of a pedestrian bridge on the north side of 24 too with BART, like, I don't know, with BART access, like the parking access, and is that not, the bridge has always been here, so.
The discussions that we have had internally relative to this project, I think moving forward have envisioned a pathway, a bridge over Brown. Now, I'm sorry, over Oak Hill. That remains to be seen, and we wouldn't burden this project with construction of that bridge, contribution of that bridge. That would be a future endeavor that could potentially be funded through MTC grant funding for alternatives to the road network for automobiles, multimodal, et cetera. So this project, that is a future issue to resolve. But in terms of scope for the East Bay Mud pathway that the city engineer has found kind of proportional to the project, the least steep portion, which is on screen and graveled, is that portion that staff is recommending, and we'll have the applicant speak to that as well.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
That's it.
Okay.
Commissioner Mason? Commissioner Farzan? So just closing that,
Mhm.
what I'm hearing is because of the topography directly adjacent to the site, we're currently working on a condition where there can be offsite improvements made, and since those are live discussions, there's no condition of approval yet, but staff would come up with one between the now and the time it goes to the council for approval.
Correct.
Okay. And then my only question was, remind me of the density of the opportunity sites, when we did the, housing element. Are we achieving the density that we identified in this area in the downtown with this project, or are we close to maximizing the density to get the biggest bang for our buck for our, RENA numbers?
It maximizes the density under the current zoning, which is 35 dwelling units per acre.
Mm-hmm.
It actually exceeds that because they are using state density bonus law, which is consistent with the last 10 projects, I think, that you've seen, multifamily projects. I'll take it back, but certainly 5 of those. Most have used state density bonus law. It is, this project does not capitalize on the adopted housing elements, proposed zoning change of going to 60 units per acre in that northern portion of blocks 1A, 3A, and 5A.
Okay. Thank you. All right, with that, we'll turn it over to the applicant to make any presentation. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, commissioners. Good evening, staff, and good evening to the community. Thank you for having us this evening. Obviously, it's been an 18-month hiatus on this project for a variety of macro and micro reasons. I wasn't going to start there, but mainly based out of us patiently waiting for the housing element update to catch up to what we envision to be the best use of the project. But we are here because we're local community members and we don't see putting a builder's remedy application in because this is our community. And I think that's an important way to start because it is the truth of us growing up in this area, the partners being community members and not wanting to try to put pressure on the city of Lafayette, but work together, which staff has done, in my opinion, greatly to create trust between us and the commissions and the way that the community is going to benefit from the site. We have addressed the majority of the questions that were raised about 16 or 17 months ago. The project, I think if we want to go into any of the objective design standards or otherwise, I'm happily answer some of those questions. I don't know if you remember, I was on a Zoom that answered about an hour of questions on this project, so I don't want to reiterate and waste anyone's time here. However, the utility undergrounding, when you look at this site, the project from the Millie's corridor up and over, we're happy to underground that utility pole underground, excuse me. And then the utilities that are across the street, obviously, is a much further undertaking with transformers and undergrounding that would probably be infeasible. And then the other overhead facility comes closer to the Dudum property, which obviously we wouldn't be able to go on their property, but we are interested in undergrounding poles. I'm also a partner with Brian Griggs on 950 Huff, where we're trying to do that on our property voluntarily, because we believe that the projects in the streets without the utility poles is to the ultimate benefit of our community. The offsite path I'm going to come back to because it's probably the hardest to talk through. The trash enclosure, Republic Services, and the architect, as well as my partner Brian Griggs, have had multiple conversations to the satisfaction of Republic Services as designed. So we addressed it. I'm going to go to the tree mitigations. We addressed that per plan. The next public art, I want to reiterate, it is our goal to provide public art. I was the first donor on the building just below Uncle U's on the art piece that is there with Laura Dudo. I believe in public art. I want to provide it. I just want to understand as we get further with this project what the best use is, because this is a intersection where a lot of our private and our neighboring community members come into the site. So it'll be studied. It'll go through committee, excuse me. And I spoke to Mr. Wolf tonight about having some of the Public Art Commission earlier on the phasing so that they can opine earlier. Access, we removed that error. And now I will move to the two harder issues, the offsite path. I met with the city engineer and I met with a few other that were working on this East Bay Aqueduct. One of the main reasons that we paused the project is it became economically infeasible due to higher interest rates and the way that the housing market has changed for rental projects, which you're not going to see many broken ground. I'm currently building 3742. I'm finishing Lucas Ranch. I'm building 950 Huff, all for sale projects. For sale projects are better underwriting at this point rather than the for rental projects. So one of the main reasons that we placed pause other than the housing element update was strictly for underwriting reasons. With that said, we are willing and we look forward to working with the community. We also want a nexus to BART. It makes sense. One of the main reasons that we acquired the site was in that, or are going to acquire the site, excuse me, is that we believe that this transit-oriented sort of redevelopment of our core, it's a perfect example to start working through and actually building the city the way that we want to, but the state is going to mandate us through, as you've experienced through your housing element update. So I think the devil's in the details in these. I walked the first part. I've discussed with Mr. Wolf and I am still inclined to try to work something out, but I want to be and acknowledge the economic pressures of development for rental projects, of which have not been built in the city of Lafayette for, I think, 20 years now. So if we haven't had a rental project underwrite in 20 years, I just wanted to caveat that it's something that I have to be mindful of too, because if I can't get the debt, I can't build the buildings, I can't provide the BMRs, and we're stuck here. So I will do my best, but it needs to be worked out, and I need to understand the accessibility, what railings, what sort of ramping, et cetera. The other, and I'll answer any questions. I know I breezed through that, but I have 4 minutes. The other issue with the architectural materials, we're trying to stay on the simple side of this building. We're not trying to go modern. I'm not trying to work in the Walnut Creek sort of 28 materials on one building. When you get to the corner, we're trying to stay with the intent of the community so that the backdrop, and as the building steps up the hillside, it disappears rather than pulls itself out. We're worried and we are trying to make cautious decisions around maintenance and be mindful so that we don't have to scaffold the building constantly with tenants in it and restain or repaint. And we tried to make a decision so that as you walk the site, you have the landscaping and the trees as you walk through, if you are walking through that sidewalk or driving, so that the siding and massing more gently eases up the hillside so that it's not just seen as a project that's trying to be something. It's why we minimized the colors. It's why we updated the colors per prior request with the Design Review and Planning Commission. And we try to be thoughtful and mindful to how the community is going to be presented with this project, especially since there'll be a commercial building next to it. The BMRs, we moved to 3 VLIs and 3 LIs. This was for density bonus reasons to maximize. I'm not going to get us pushed off, but you asked a question and I'm going to answer it. No, this does not maximize density, and no, this does not provide for. However, I am a developer with no other choice to either bring in a density or a builder's remedy at 150 to 180 units, or to bring this project through with the way that the economics are on our project. So we have another project designed. Trachtenberg Architects did design the project. We were excited to bring that forward. We spent a tremendous amount of time and energy, effort, capital, and patience getting ready for that. But unfortunately, we have a project that is ready for entitlement, and the way that the capital markets work, unfortunately, it is something that we have to move forward with. But I will reserve And hopefully we will work through once the housing element update is approved, and we can work with the community to figure out the highest and best use for this project, because it's so central and core to our BART station. So it is a project that we are excited to move forward in Lafayette. I think everyone in this commission knows that we take a tremendous amount of pride in our projects locally and away. And again, I do want to compliment the staff for providing us feasibility as council and the community went through the process to ensure that the community remains theirs. I will address two more comments in that I called the neighbor, Mr. Moore, today to talk about two issues. The staircase egress does egress onto his property. I understand his concerns, and I'm going to move that 90-degree angle. I will handle that in the council before the council meeting the following week. And the second is the delivery and cut through for the parking. I think we need to meet on site and just talk about it to make sure that we're keeping pressure off of Terrace Way, which I believe we'll be able to capture on the other parking where the current curb cut is going on to Oak Hill. So I appreciate your time. I'm sorry it's taken us a few years to be here. We're excited about the project. We're excited about the property and what it can become. And we always appreciate your time. One last comment. You had my daughter that you got to introduce herself, which meant that my nephew Kyle is watching, and I had to say hello. Hi, Kyle. Thank you, guys.
All right, thank you. Any questions for the applicant? Commissioner Mason?
Just two real quick questions.
Sir.
Which of them may not happen. So is it your intent through the drawings to condominiumize?
No.
Is it your intent to condominiumize the units anyway, regardless of whether you rent or not?
No, not right now.
Okay. And second, could you talk about in the podium, EV or EV adaptable for the residential parking?
Yeah, we'll comply with the EV ready, EV adaptable. I haven't got that far because I haven't got into DDs, et cetera, but it's unfortunately, that's where our world's going, and we will provide. So on 950, we're providing EV ready on every single stall. On 375 West El Pintado and Danville, I'm doing it to every stall too. So it's just from a fortunate side to hear this. The market is demanding it from us, which is great, so that we're planning on providing.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Questions? I don't have a question, just a comment. Thanks for your presentation. Thanks for addressing what you heard were questions. Thanks for addressing the comments made by the neighbor. And I guess I do have one clarifying question. There's no concessions. It's just waivers now.
I think we left a concession for a half art fee at this point.
Okay. What the staff report indicated. So I heard.
Did we take it back? Excuse me. We took it back. No concessions, just waivers.
Okay. Understood. Okay.
Excuse me. I apologize.
And do we have any questions from the public? Do you come up to the podium, sir? And
You're opening the public hearings and soliciting public comment?
yes.
Okay, great. So yes, this gent is approaching, and then we'll go and look to see any raised hands on the
Okay.
Zoom.
And I just if you could fill out a speaker card when you're
I'll do
done.
I'm Brian Moore. Jeff reached out to me today, so I appreciate that. I have no problem with this development overall. I'm on the southwest corner on Terrace, and I own half a Terrace Road, I guess, in front of the project. The issues that I expressed today that Jeff reached out to me for were they address most of them. I do like the way they go in and out, but I have a retaining wall there as well that I think Jeff and he reached out to me about a year ago and I was just kind of shocked. I just looked at the plans today and picked up the card. So I was kind of shocked that it was at this point. But he had asked me if I was okay with removing the retaining wall. I indicated, yeah, let's talk about it. Show me the plans. So I think that's something that we need to add to the list, but we're going to work that out. He's got a retaining wall proposed behind that, and I think that's going to be fine. But I just want to have that addressed kind of between he and I. And then I'm not great at this, but there were some elevation issues on Terrace as it went down the hill, which I think is my road, which I think they're proposing to take down. But again, I think that's just something that Jeff and I need to talk about and work out. So I do have kind of another little issue I want to talk to him about, and I think the planner got it wrong in that when things drop onto public roads, and he actually has an easement back there that he can drop his people on, but if everybody built up to everybody's property lines up in that area, there's no exiting anything. So I'm not sure how people handle that. So I'm going to talk to him about that. I know Brian's familiar with it because I used to own the building that is next to the one that he's building, and he really worked with me on that. And I just sold it because I want it out. But I'll work with Jeff, and I don't know how to address that formally, and I don't want to hold up their process, but at the same time, I want to make sure that those issues get addressed properly. Okay.
Great, thank you. Any questions of the speaker? Okay, yeah, no, great. Thanks for coming up, and it shows that you and Jeff are talking, and you guys are going to work it out. Any other public comment? Any comments online?
We have no hands raised on Zoom.
Okay, thank you. So I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing and bring it back to the commission for. Oh, do you want a rebuttal? And do you want to rebut anything or say anything? Okay, just making sure because you have that right. Okay. So we'll bring it back to commission for discussion, deliberation, motion.
I'll simply say it's obviously been a while since this project was before us. I appreciate the applicant going as far as they have to address the issues. I won't say issues, but suggestions that we made. And a couple of the open issues, we got the reasoning for why it's not going forward, or there's still some compromises to be made. I'm comfortable with the recommendation for staff and recommending this to go forward for the city council where we are. That's simply where I am.
Okay. Any other comments? Greg?
I agree. I think it's going to be a good project and an asset to the city.
The same, it seems like the issues that we discussed last time were relatively minimal, and they've been addressed or explained to my satisfaction as well.
Yeah, thank you. I feel the same. We spent a lot of time on this project in the first two meetings. We wrestled with some pretty big issues at the beginning, and I think we've come down to smallish issues that appear to be being worked out with neighbors or with the path. It sounds like staff's on it, and we're going to have just a point of clarification. So any conditions, clarifying conditions will be in place before the next public meeting.
Correct.
Okay. So if we're passing this on to the council, they're going to see a complete package.
Correct. Relative to yes, is the short answer. And specifically with respect to the extent of the undergrounding, which is from the pole across the street, across Oak Hill from the project. The overhead, the lines that cross over Oak Hill will be undergrounded. The pole on the Oak Hill frontage in front of the project will be removed. And so the project will be provided electricity underground. And then second is with respect to the East Bay Mud Aqueduct pathway and the extent to which the developer would build a portion of that as discussed today. And so we'll meet additionally with the city engineer to make that very clear for all parties before it goes to the city council.
Great. Well, with that, would anyone like to make a motion?
So I will move to adopt resolution 2024-06, which is attachment A to the staff report recommending approval to the city council with the issues that the planning director just reiterated, with some compromises before it goes to the city council.
Okay. We have a motion
Second.
and we have a second. All those in favor? Any opposed? None? Passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Me too. Okay. Let's move on to new public hearings. Item 8. We have 8A, Sun Valley Swimming Pool. We have a request for change of conditions, grading permit to construct a barbecue area at 1000 Leland Drive. Staff report, please.
This staff report, the project planner Anna Toll will be presenting virtually using our. So I'm receiving a message that I think that Anna Toll is requesting to be added to the as a panelist and therefore can present.
Good evening. Thank you very much. I wonder if you might be able to help me, allow me to share my screen, Greg?
My colleague in the booth. will
Thank
have-
you. That's perfect.
Thank you.
Good evening, commissioners. Tonight I'll be presenting on L0315CC change of conditions, secondary permit GR 324. This is for Sun Valley Swimming Pool Association at 1000 Leland Drive. 1000 Leland Drive is located in a residential area surrounded primarily by single-family residents, as well as you can see, a school and a church just to the north. Farther north is a East Bay Mud Reservoir as well. So it's majority single-family residences, but there are some larger, more open parcels as well. The existing rear wall at the swim club is in need of replacement, and the swim club is seeking to expand their patio in this process. The project consists of removing the eastern and southern concrete block retaining walls at the rear of the property and expanding the existing patio by 341 square feet and replacing the terraced walls used as planters with new planters. The proposal also includes replacing the ramp that leads to a small storage shed with stairs shown to the right. The existing single barbecue grill will be replaced with 2 grills for swim club members to use. And the new concrete walls are consistent with the existing concrete block walls. Shown here is a partial site plan showing just the patio area at the rear of the property. Some walls are in good condition and will remain. They're shown to the left as planters. Staff evaluated the project in relation to the former approval of the swim club in 2015, which included conditions of approval that limited special events, outdoor lighting, and membership numbers in order to reduce impacts to local neighbors. Staff analysis found that because these membership numbers will not increase and special events will also not increase as part of this proposal, this patio expansion will have a minimal effect on the nearby residents. The same ongoing conditions of that 2015 approval have been incorporated into the current project conditions as well. No public comments have been received on the proposal, and staff submitted the plans to the city engineer for preliminary review. He commented that the applicant should incorporate permeable surfacing wherever possible to reduce drainage impacts and to direct stormwater over landscaping. This can be reviewed at a staff level when the applicant submits construction drawings and does not need to be addressed at this time. Staff can make all the findings required for a land use permit and a grading permit. The proposal is consistent with the original land use permit approval from 2015. It complies with all applicable zoning standards. The patio expansion will not result in increased noise or nuisance problems within the neighborhood. And therefore, staff recommends the Planning Commission find the project exempt from CEQA and adopt Resolution 2024-05, approving the project subject to conditions. That concludes my presentation. Thank you for your time, and I can answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Anna. Do we have any questions for Anna?
I have a procedural question.
Yeah.
I'm assuming we did the posting for this project there. And the reason I say this, because I know there have been some issues in the past with the neighbors and that swim club. So just for the record, we posted, and how far did we post, et cetera, et cetera. I just want that in the record.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a good question. Knowing those issues, the standard posting of 300 feet of radius from the subject property was increased to 500 feet. So anyone owning property within 500 feet of the property would got a mailed notice. And standard with land use permits and other permits that can affect a larger area outside of the immediate vicinity, we also posted a legal ad in the Lafayette Sun.
Great, thank you.
Mhm.
Any other questions? Commissioner Sturm?
I just wanted to be clear about the runoff or the stormwater drainage. So you were saying that, well, I'm looking at the city engineer's email, and is the idea that what he would require is there's space that's possible to accomplish this, so the details of it would be worked out later, but what's being proposed can be is manageable given the existing site?
That's my understanding. The majority of the lot is already covered with impervious surface between the pool deck, parking, and the building for the locker rooms on the site. There are some areas with trees and some planter strip areas. So my understanding is that some of the stormwater could be directed to that area. And if they find that to not be enough or not be as feasible, they could also incorporate permeable paving into the new patio.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
No questions, Commissioner Mason? Okay. Thank you, Anna. Also, thank you for highlighting in the staff report that there are no changes to parking, members at the swim club, hours of operation, number of special events, because I do recall that meeting from 2015 was very, there was robust discussion,
Mhm.
many commenters, and it was a very, it was a good meeting. I'll just leave it at that. But thank you for highlighting this in the staff report. So seeing no more questions, I'll bring it to the commit. Oh, do we have any public comment? I see no public comment in the audience. Do we have any online?
There are no hands raised on Zoom.
Okay, thank you. So I'll bring it back to the commission for any final comments or a motion. No final comments?
I believe the applicant is present, if he would like to make a presentation.
Oh,
I forgot to say that. I'm
My
sorry.
apologies. I thought you were, okay, I thought you were here for the other item on the agenda. Would you like to make any Okay. Do we have any questions as a commission? Any commissioners have any questions for the architect? Okay, seeing none, I will entertain a motion. I'll go ahead and make a motion that we approve the project subject to conditions and approve resolution 2024-5.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No, passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Anna. Okay, let's move on to new public hearing. Did I open that last public hearing and close it?
You did invite public comment from.
I didn't say out loud, I'm opening and closing the public.
No, but you
but I
did
did.
solicit public comment
Okay.
both in person and online.
Okay, but as I was reading the next public hearing, I was wondering if I did it right. Okay. All right, item 8B, a medical dental office owned by Lindbergh's L1-24 at 3547 Wilkinson Lane. Staff report, please.
Thank you and good evening. As stated, this is a land use permit for medical services at 3547 Wilkinson Lane. The project site is outlined in green on the right. It is just to the right and a little to the south of the shield block, which you can also see on this map. The parcel currently holds 2 existing one-story office buildings on approximately 14,000 square feet. The parcel sits in the downtown core area of the general plan and in the downtown retail area of the downtown specific plan. Zoning is retail business district. Access is from the Moraga Road onto Wilkinson Lane for autos. People can also cross through the trees on the west side of the property, which connects to a parking area just to the south of Lafayette Circle there. Looking at the site plan on the right, you can see that there are 2 detached buildings. We're talking tonight about building B, which is on the left or west side of the parcel. I do want to call out, actually looking at the photo here, building A is on the left and building B is on the right. I want to call out that there are previous land use permits for this property. In 2020, the Planning Commission granted a land use permit for a real estate office use. This did not have regular visits from the public, but was a more contained use. This is an office use by the applicant and owner of the property. It still exists today. In 2021, a change of conditions to that use permit was granted for medical use in the opposite building, building B. Unfortunately, this land use permit expired without the applicant's awareness. And so that led us to the situation that we have today, which is we have a tenant that's very interested in occupying the building and an expired land use permit, thus the renewal in this land use permit for that use. Related to the interested tenant, a design review permit was approved at the end of last year, DR 2023, for the building B to be brought up to match building A. So you can see the shingle use on the left, building B on the right has been approved to have similar treatment to the exterior, that they're more similarly represented. The current land use permit before you now is for a pediatric dentist office. The land use permit itself contains no exterior changes. There is a building permit in process at the county for interior changes to the building for the proposed use. The office would have hours of 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday through Friday with occasional Saturday use. There would be 5 employees. The parking does work out, including the use for building A. There are 2 extra spaces for the 2 uses together. And the use does conform with the general plan and downtown specific plan. The use is not contemplated by the zoning code. However, that is because, excuse me, by the district zoning, that is because it has not been brought up to speed with the downtown specific plan. And it is the planning commission's practice to use a land use permit to process these. We've received one public comment after publication of the staff report. This was in support of the project and from an adjacent neighbor. Referrals were sent to the city engineer, Central Sand, EBMUD, Fire, and the Health Department. Primarily, no comments were received. We did receive standard comments from EDMUD and Fire. That concludes staff's report. And with that, we would recommend that the Planning Commission find the project exempt from CEQA and adopt PC Resolution 2024-04, approving the project subject to conditions. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thanks, Arlie. Any questions for Arlie? Okay,
The applicant is available online on Zoom, and I believe would like to say something, if that's all right.
okay, well, I would, let's invite the applicant to speak if they wish.
If my colleague in the booth could promote Mr. Lindbergh.
Hey, can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can.
Indeed.
Hello. Thank you so much. Appreciate you guys all being here. Appreciate the time. Arlie, you did a great job. You kind of took my job. I had a bunch of notes written down and ready to kind of add in, but each time you turn the slide, you kind of read my mind. So I appreciate all the diligent notes, and you did a great job. I have nothing else to add. Any questions, we're happy to answer, though.
I don't think we have any questions, but thank you for participating this evening, and thank you for this project.
Of course, thank you.
So with that, I'm going to go ahead and open the public hearing and to see if there's any public comment on this item. See, there's no one in the audience, so is there anyone online?
We do not have any hands raised on Zoom.
Okay, thank you. I'll go ahead and close public comment. And I take it that the applicant does not wish to rebut anything because nothing was said. So I'll bring it back to the commission for discussion or a motion or comments. Commissioner Farsan.
I honestly don't think we've had an easier project before us, and pretty straightforward. And I think if there wouldn't have been an expiration, we wouldn't be here. So
Exactly.
I'm happy to make a motion if there are no other thoughts.
Great. So we have a motion, a second.
Second.
We have a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
None opposed, so it passes unanimously. Thank you, Arlie. Thank you, Mr. Lindbergh. Let's see, I think that's it. We have no other business. Do we have any commissioners' reports? Anything to report out on? See none. Appointed directors report?
The agenda notes that this commission is being preempted in this room for your next meeting on May 6th. The city council this year is hosting the Tri-Cities meeting of the Loma Cities, Lafayette, Moraga, Orinda. So that'll be held in this room on that date. And so we will happily meet elsewhere. And currently that is the available space is at the city offices down the hall from the city offices in room 240. And so we will notice accordingly and convey that message robustly to applicants and members of the public. And so we'll try to remember to remind you as well on the 6th, so that you're not coming here accidentally. So that is what I have to report. Is we'll be meeting at the city offices on the 6th.
Great, thank you. With that, we're adjourned.
Thank you.
Good.